Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe P Zapia, and today we're going to take a quick look ahead at the NFL Draft. It's just weeks away. I know that seems like a long time, but really it isn't. So we decided we would get on here on the Betting Pros YouTube channel, on the podcast, and start giving you some looks at early things that we're talking about, whether it be potential landing spots for a few players, because we've done so many mock drafts over on our Fantasy Pros channel. If you haven't seen them, I strongly suggest you go watch. We just did another 3-round job yesterday, which is pretty amazing, and it was under an hour. I just want to add, too, 3 rounds in 50 minutes. Not bad, my friend, not bad. So go check those out. But today we're talking about how to put some money down on some of those prospects that are coming into the NFL, and who better to do that than my boy, Derek Brown, D-Bro, the king of bros. He's been to the Senior Bowl. He and I watched the Combine together in Dallas, hanging out there, having cocktails, which I'm sure did not influence at all any of our takes on the players. But D-Bro, fascinating stuff, because I got to get this right at the top, because Chris Mortensen released a report yesterday, and the report was very contrary to the groupthink, which was CJ Stroud's easily going to be the number one guy. And looking at what the odds were yesterday when I put the show together, and then after the report today, CJ Stroud was at -270, Bryce Young +210 to be the Carolina Panthers' number one overall pick, that pick that they moved up to make. Now, both stand even at +110. I understand this is smokescreen season. I get that. Usually we get in the last couple of weeks, but Chris Mortensen has a really good history of being right about a lot of things, and this has moved the market significantly. So, in your opinion, how do you look at this number one overall pick now? Is it something you can wager on, or are you waiting to make one more move one other direction and see what happens in the weeks ahead?
I mean, I'm still going to bet CJ Stroud, Joe. I think
Okay.
this comes down to. This allows you to get access to where CJ Stroud, and off the top of my head, what was he yesterday? -200, -270,
Minus
somewhere around there?
270 right now if you're looking
Yes.
at the Betting Pros consensus line, or if you're looking on your app, which you should have downloaded already because it's free and it's amazing, but continue.
-270, and now he's gone to plus money. Give me all that action, Joe. Like, I'm here for that, because the draft history and the quarterback history for Frank Reich still applies here, regardless of whatever Mortensen puts out there into the space. It's still a reality that if you look back on Frank Reich's history of quarterbacks, he has not had a starting quarterback since he has been leading offenses, whether as a head coach or an offensive coordinator. He has not had a quarterback measuring under 6'4". So CJ Stroud, 6'3", Anthony Richardson, 6'4". This is where I'm willing to sit here and toss my money. I understand, like, do I say that I'm gonna have even a little bit of light action on Bryce Young at plus money? Sure, I could do that, because again, if the market continues to move, we get any more reports, and then you see Bryce Young go to minus whatever, then you're going to miss out on that.
Sure.
So I think that there's a good bit of variance in all these NFL draft props and stuff, and how the market moves and ebbs and flows. And right now, I'd look at this as the time where you need to get in on CJ Stroud.
I would agree.
That would have been yesterday,
Well,
but
no.
now we're here.
Hey, it's the day to get in CJ Stroud for sure, because it was minus money yesterday. Now it's plus. So for me, if you think Stroud is the guy and you think this is the smokescreen season part of the NFL draft of April, then yeah, this is when you start putting some money down, because you might not see a plus number again on CJ Stroud. As far as the Bryce Young number, it was plus 210. Now it's plus 110. So that's moved quite a bit. I kind of see where you're going there, which is you might want to lock in a little bit there as well. But to me, I think you wait on this and see what happens over the next few days, because, we always have the same process, right? Which is, you have the things right after the season's over, those initial feels, which is always a good time to get into this market for the NFL draft. Then you have the post Senior Bowl stuff. Then you have the post combine stuff. And then after the combine, you always get this other movement where guys who have good combines, they start to fade a little bit when people watch a little bit more tape, or guys who have not so great combines, like the safety from Alabama, let's say, right? Maybe it wasn't the greatest combine that you hope for. You start to have people go back and look at the tape and go, yeah, maybe this guy is a first round pick. So I think there's a lot going on there to figure out. And again, if you're going to make your wagers, make sure you're doing it using the Betting Pros app, so you can get all of the best odds wherever you're going. And it's free to download. You get it on the iPhone, you can get it on Android. And of course, you can use BetMGM, who is our sponsor, because they're offering $1,000 to new users with their first bet free. And you can sign up at BetMGM and use that promo code JUICE and get up to $1,000 in free bonus bets, even if you don't win. So use BetMGM, use some of the things we're giving you here, and use the tools to make it all work. Let's get to some more names here on these draft props. The first wide receiver drafted. Now, this has varied quite a bit in the mocks that we've done, in the mocks that I've seen out there in the space. So Jackson Smith and Jigba right now is minus 160 on the consensus line over at BettingPros. Zay Flowers at plus 340, Quentin Johnson plus 500, Jordan Addison plus 800, Jalen Hyatt plus 2,000, Josh Downs plus 10,000. So we'll leave Hyatt and Downs out of that. That doesn't seem like it. Some people have Addison at the top of their board, which would be a huge moneymaker. But it seems like JSN is kind of the safe pick here, D-Bro. But I want to get your thoughts here. Can Flowers potentially be that guy? Because there is a lot of strong buzz on him. And depending on what team decides to go and draft him, that is the difference between the guy that fits their offense better than maybe a JSN does. Maybe they need a field stretcher like Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the Zay call as far as because he has been screaming up the board a little bit, but his expected draft position, and so his EDP is currently at 25.4. And I get he's climbed during this process, but still, even in the most robust mocks that you see out there in the space, he's still going in the 20s. So really, I have a hard time kind of biting into the apple of chasing Zay Flowers up the board. What I will say is, and I think we're both in lockstep here, Joe, as far as JSN at minus 160, I don't want any of that. There's no juice and squeeze there. So
I would agree. I'm worried that it's going to get worse over time, though. That's
I agree.
my thing.
It's possible.
Now, we have seen in the past, D, where we have these wide receivers that we think, oh, this is the safe consensus guy. And then they don't go first. We saw that a couple years ago in the draft, right? And it kind of threw a lot of people there. So do you see, again, that was a better wide receiver draft that year, right? So I think you could make that argument. Well, people really started to understand where some of the value was, but still, it does kind of feel like he is the consensus number one right now. And it doesn't feel like that's going to change anytime soon. If you want to lock it in, maybe it's time to lock it at the minus 160, but you never know. It is the NFL draft. That's what makes it fun. Now, it happens to be a really good tight end draft, too, which is not a phrase we tend to say very often when covering the NFL draft. So this is a very exciting time here. So let's talk about these numbers here. Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, minus 110. He's the favorite to go first. But Dalton Kincaid is the guy that a lot of experts feel like are going to make the most impact offensively for a team. He is at plus 175. Darnell Washington, who might just be a second lineman as well as a tight end with the way he pushes that sled, at plus 350. And then Luke Musgrave, enormous talent, again, plus 2,500, though, coming off that injury. So probably not the first guy, although some people like him as much as Kincaid. So between Mayer and Kincaid, it seems to be a two-horse race. Who are you putting your money on?
I'm putting my money on Dalton Kincaid, and the fact that you can get him at plus money is fantastic right now. I mean, their EDPs are not very different between him and Mayer. Mayer is sitting at 24.1, Kincaid is at 26.1, and we could easily see that flip. The more we get closer to the NFL draft, that could easily flip, Joe, because the reason that Dalton Kincaid is the first tight end off of my board, and it's not just reading my board, but with Kincaid, if he has more reports get flooded into the space about his health is good, because that has been thrown around in this draft cycle, if we get some more buzz and some more positive reports that stack on top of each other, you could see Kincaid move to being the favorite because their EDPs are so close, but the market's not treating it like that. So I'm going to sit here and get my action on Kincaid right now while I can. And if it flips, then maybe I toss a few chips in on Mayer, but right now Kincaid's the guy I love.
When it comes to offensive linemen so far, Vegas loves Paris Johnson Jr. to be the first one off the board at minus 125. Peter Skoronski, not far away at plus 145, but it does feel like Paris Johnson Jr. is the guy. Broderick Jones is a distant third here, plus 475. So between Skoronski and Johnson Jr., do you have a strong feeling on this? Is the minus 125 maybe the last time you can get anything close to a decent number on Johnson? Or do you think Skoronski has a shot to maybe overtake him and be the number one guy?
I'm not chasing Paris Johnson. And look, what we're looking at and what we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of is where the expected draft positions for these guys are, and looking at how close these three linemen are. Again, the market says it's going to be Paris Johnson, but you have Johnson's EDP is 10.4. Skoronski's is 11.6. Broderick Jones is still sitting at 14. That is such a narrow window that I'll enjoy the plus money. Like I have no problem with people either betting Skoronski or Jones, considering how close their EDPs are. This is one of those situations, again, where we're seeing the market show a lot of conviction. And I'm like, I'm just going to take the plus money that the market is giving us. When it's this close, it easily could be any one of these three guys.
When you're looking at the first defensive player drafted, Will Anderson seems to be that guy at minus 325. The only thing that could change that is if there's some trading going on, or trading back, or trading up. That's what's so interesting to me, because depending on what teams then fall in a certain order, this could change. And I know this one so far is obviously a very heavy favorite for Will Anderson Jr. at minus 325. That's a very heavy favorite. But Tyree Wilson at plus 300, Jalen Carter plus 400. So the team that needs the interior lineman there with Carter sitting there, it was just, a couple months ago, he was kind of the number one guy on that board, on a lot of people's board on the defensive side. And then Christian Gonzalez, we saw a bunch of corners. We saw 2 corners go in the top 5 last year. He is at plus 1,000. To me, this is a little bit more wide open than maybe the board allows itself to be. And I'm kind of fascinated because I don't think we're done with moves in the next few weeks before the draft happens. And if so, it's not that Will Anderson isn't the quote-unquote best player on the board in defense. It depends on what the teams that are drafting ahead need. And if that order should change in the next few weeks, how do you think this could shake out? Could a Christian Gonzalez be that guy? Could a Jalen Carter be that guy?
I think you could see either Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter. That's the two guys that I think are the most probable here to, if one of them overtakes Will Anderson, those are the two guys that I'm willing to sit here and put money behind. Because look, Tyree Wilson's been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of top 5 buzz, whether, Arizona trades back, they stay where they're at, they go edge. I'm not saying that Will Anderson still probably isn't the first guy off the board. I mean, the market's telling us that. But considering Tyree Wilson had a really good combine and he's gotten a lot of hype, I'm not going to be surprised if somehow he jumps Will Anderson. And Jalen Carter, I mean, you talked about it, Joe. Going into this process, Jalen Carter was like the locked in 101 of these drafts. And then everything off the field came into the equation. If some team, like in the interview process, interviews Carter, talks to him, has a good feel about who he is as a person, and bringing him into their organization, you could see a team say, look, like, I'm going to hop a few teams, trade up if he starts falling down the board a little bit. Because, I mean, look, all this needs to happen is one team says, okay, like we see quarterbacks go in the top 4 picks. One team says, look, I'm going to stop the fall for Jalen Carter, or we can get edge help and we don't need to draft one of these edge guys high. We need interior, and for Jalen Carter to go off the board. So, yeah, right now I think it's time to sit here and get your money in on Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter, because it's not that I don't like Will Anderson, but considering it, yeah, we could see different things happen in the draft, Joe. I mean, it's funny because every single year, everybody's like, when they put out mocks and we get this echo chamber of groupthink, and it's like, okay, this guy goes first, this guy goes second, okay, he's 15th. No. All of those things could change because we're not looking at teams' draft boards. We don't know who they have first on their draft board. So, yeah, this is where you get a little bit of buried action on guys.
I think this is the one where you can make the most money, to be honest with you. I think
call.
The Jalen Carter, Christian Gonzalez, thing. Look, Will Anderson, you can't bet right now. So why bother? Because the minus 325 is just too much. And if you bet that and there is that movement, you hate your life, because now all of a sudden the team that doesn't need a linebacker isn't drafting a linebacker. And the team that needs a defensive lineman might take Jalen Carter, or needs a corner, takes Gonzalez. So there's a lot to unpack there. To me, you look real close, real long and hard at this defense and make maybe more than one choice. I mean, I could see myself putting money on Jalen Carter, Christian Gonzalez here, right here. And when you do make those bets too, make sure you use the app. I'm telling you right now, it is a great app for betting pros. And before we get to the next bit, maybe some landing spots for some guys, I want to talk to you about a little fun thing we're doing here on the channel, which is, of course, we're giving away a free premium subscription to Betting Pros. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment below on this video, tell us what you think about some of these picks, or some of the picks you're making, because we love to interact with you guys. And you could win a free upgrade to Betting Pros Premium. And so if you're looking for access to exclusive picks, the top-rated player props, or the custom analysis of your betting performance, Betting Pros Premium has all the tools to help you cash more bets. Plain, simple, that's what I like to do. And you don't want to wait for the giveaway. You can sign up today at bettingpros.com/upgrade. and start betting smarter and not harder. But what's so great is when you have the app, you get the notifications as they come through. And when you're premium, you get all the bells and whistles, and you can even track your progress, which is fun. If you're going to watch the NFL draft, you're going to invest in the NFL draft. Come invest and track your progress against everybody else, too. It's a good time. What's also a good time is finding out where Bijan Robinson is going to land. Ooh-wee. This is a fun one. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are the quote-unquote favorites at plus 500 for an individual team. The Bengals are a plus 800, the Falcons plus 9. Then you have some teams like the Ravens, the Texans. The Commanders, ironically, are plus 500 too, along with the Chargers. So when you're looking at some of the higher-rung teams, yesterday in our mock draft on Fantasy Pros, Andrew Erickson did draft Bijan for the Washington Commanders at plus 500. There's been talk about the Chargers maybe moving on from Austin Eckler. He could be a fit at plus 500. The Cowboys, certainly without Zeke, hometown hero. You can write the narrative. The Bengals at plus 800 make a lot of sense. The Eagles at plus 900. Then you got some long shots like the Patriots and Saints. Again, the Ravens and Texans a little bit later on. But when you're looking at Bijan Robinson, the other bet you can make is plus 175 for any other team, which I don't like. I think these are kind of the teams, and I think you're getting some great numbers. So let's spread the units a little bit. Where would you want to put some units on Bijan Robinson's landing spot? What do you have?
The three teams that stand out to me, Joe, are Dallas, the Chargers, and the Bengals. Those are the three teams that, look, either they have their starting running back is on a one-year deal, or if you're the Bengals, maybe they cut their starting running back before week one. But all three of these teams could be staring at a new backfield leader, whether it's this season or next year. So the way that I'm chasing that is those are the three teams that I love the most. And really the one that stands out to me, Joe, is go with Cincinnati. Why not Cincinnati? Plus 800, they cut Joe Mixon. And when you look at the draft order for these teams, now saying Bijan falls down the board, he gets into the late 20s, okay? Dallas is picking 26th. If he gets to 26th or in the late 20s, how could we not see like a team like whether it's going to be the Chargers that are picking ahead of them, or the Bengals that are picking at 28th, that could say, okay, well, Dallas is going to take this guy. We're going to hop him. We're going to hop the Cowboys and get to Bijan first. So to me, those are the three teams that I'll look at as my favorites. And really the one that if you're picking one of these to throw money on or maybe put like a unit and a half on.
Well, I think
the Bengals.
You made a great point, D, before about the groupthink. And the groupthink is based off the order it is, instead of looking ahead a little bit to say who might be leapfrogging, who is one piece away. I mean, look, the Bengals get Bijan Robinson. That is terrifying for the rest of the AFC and the rest of the league. Beautiful. That is a terrifying thing. I think the Cowboys are definitely worth a unit for sure, because Jerry Jones loves those kinds of backs. I think, and Roschon Johnson's a really interesting back too. Like, don't forget about the other Texas guy, folks, because that guy's going to make an impact too. And he's starting to get some helium and people realizing, hey, that guy behind Bijan was pretty darn good too. But I like where you're coming from with the Bengals, because that plus 800 consensus is great. The nice. Cowboys at plus 5 is another one. I don't think the Ravens is a great landing spot if you're looking for the other long shots. I don't think the Patriots will go that route. They need offensive line help in the worst way, and they need some more defensive help too. So that's probably where they're going. The Eagles would be fascinating. I just don't think they're going to be in the position to get it done. And they're losing too much. Like, they got to replenish on the defensive side from things that they've lost. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson, because this is another wide open one. Which team will he land on? The Colts at plus 200, they are at the very top. The Tennessee Titans at plus 300. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks at plus 450. Any other team at plus 550. So you always got to watch for that any other team. Sometimes that's a really good wager, but when they give you, 8 or 9 different ones, that's a problem. The Las Vegas Raiders at plus 800. The Baltimore Ravens at plus 9. I don't think the Ravens would be going for another project quarterback necessarily. I don't think they're in that mode at this stage. The Carolina Panthers, they're too far down. I don't think they're going to take their quarterback and be done. But when you're looking at the Tennessee Titans, they were in the quarterback pool last year. Malik Willis didn't make the progress they had hoped. The Colts certainly could be in the quarterback market and should be. I don't know if Richardson's the right guy. What do you think about the Raiders at plus 8? That's the one I keep coming back to as an interesting one.
I don't see the Raiders kind of doing that. I mean, it's possible, Joe, but looking at Jimmy G's contract structure, I mean, it looks like kind of a 2-year deal. Now, to say that like that would wipe them out of the Anthony Richardson sweepstakes, no. But the teams that kind of stand out to me, I mean, if you want to go with Indy, I mean, even being the favorite, they're still plus 200. So I think that that's still a spot where you can make some money at. And just like you talked about Tennessee, they stick out to me at plus 300. I know I'm talking about the two favorites here, but having both of those at plus money, I think is perfectly fine. The two that make the most sense for me is whether it's Baltimore at plus 900, whether you're seeing if they were to possibly make a trade with Indy for Lamar and he falls down there, or we talked about it earlier in the show, and I don't have a problem with going with the Carolina Panthers at plus 1,000. Because if you look at, and I talked about Frank Reich's quarterback drafting history and size, and this matters because how he wants to like cultivate or look at the type of quarterback that he wants to sit here and put his name behind, it's guys with size. Anthony Richardson is 6'4", Joe. He fits that diagram.
But he's probably going to wait behind somebody. Like I don't think that's wrong. And if you're looking to wait behind somebody,
Andy Dalton,
Jimmy G waiting behind maybe the Seahawks plus 450. The Seahawks have a ton of picks. See, the Seahawks have enough draft capital, in my opinion, to take a flyer on Anthony Richardson, and he can sit behind Geno for a year or two and kind of learn and figure it out. The Seahawks and Raiders are where I keep going back to. I love you dearly. I strongly disagree with the Panthers pick. They're going to take one of those two quarterbacks at the top, and then they're going to continue to, fill out all of the many, many needs that the Panthers have. The Panthers, a couple years ago, they spent all of their draft picks on defense. So it would not shock me for them to spend all of their draft capital this year on offense, especially with an offensive-minded head coach there now. So that would not shock me whatsoever because the defense, has its moments at times, and they have some talent, but the offense just couldn't get anything done. Last one here. Who will draft Jalen Carter? Now, this is an interesting one. The Detroit Lions are at the top here, plus 200. The Seattle Seahawks at plus 300. Then you have the Eagles at plus 5. I don't think he's ever going to get there, and I don't think the Eagles have the capital to move up necessarily. The Bears at plus 600. That's an interesting spot. Any other team at plus 850. Then you have the Falcons at 9, the Raiders at 12, the Texans at 12, then the Jets, Cardinals, and the Colts kind of bringing up the rear. So Jalen Carter is, I think, the great unknown. I think it's more fun to draft, wager on where he is going to get drafted in terms of which first defensive player goes off the board. I like that. What team I think is really tough. I keep coming back to Seattle again, though, because they've got so many picks that they can afford to take a shot. 3-1 is a good number, but where do you see Jalen Carter potentially landing, and how would you spread out maybe some Jalen Carter units here to see where we can make some good investments?
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think Seattle and Detroit make the most sense. I see his absolute floor probably being Seattle. I just don't see like him falling to Detroit. I don't think he gets past Seattle. Seattle has prioritized having good tackle play over the last few years. They care a lot about stopping the run. They care a lot about getting interior pressure, and Jalen Carter can help them do both of those things. So, I mean, look, we've seen Seattle sit here and take players that maybe were a little bit polarizing in the sense of like years past, like DK Metcalf, his testing metrics and stuff like that. They had no problems drafting him when he was falling down the board. And if Seattle says, look, Jalen Carter is the first guy, the number one player on our board, and you're letting him to fall to us at 5, I don't see them passing that up. So I'll look at probably Seattle, Detroit. Detroit is his absolute floor, but Seattle is where I think he goes. So that's really where I would want to focus my betting at.
All right. We've got a lot of great articles too up at Betting Pros right now. So go check them out at bettingpros.com. You can also, see them on the apps as well. Don't forget to drop a comment below, subscribe to the channel, click that little bell till it goes ding for notifications. And if you comment below and do all those things like I asked you to, you could win premium upgrade to Betting Pros, which is amazing. If you don't want to wait, I venture to say you probably don't want to. Go to bettingpros.com/upgrade. Just upgrade today and start betting smarter and not harder, or go ahead and take advantage of the BetMGM offering $1,000 to new users with a first free bet. Again, use that promo code over there for Betting Pros and go sign up at BetMGM today. And Derek Brown, thank you so much for hanging out and talking a little draft with me. We'll have more mock drafts going on the Fantasy Pros page, so go subscribe to that as well. Use the tools. And I don't just mean us. although we've been referred to as tools many, many times in our careers and in our real lives as well. Use us here to help you make some cash on the NFL draft. Just weeks away. Very exciting times. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Derek Brown, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.